Is now Democratic Congresswoman Jackie Speier of California. She's a member of both the Intelligence and the Armed Services Committees. Congresswoman, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, so you just saw Chairman Nunes. He did step aside from leading the Russian investigation. He's the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. So why is he still involved in issuing subpoenas that are related to that overall investigation?
Good question, Wolf. In part, it's because I don't think his recusal is a real one. And since he made it voluntarily and he can withdraw that recusal, I suppose, it's a real affront to the committee. Because not only is he doing that, but my understanding is he's also gone to the CIA and looked at documents on the Russia investigation and has sat in on what are called Gang of Eight briefings, which continue to talk about the infiltration by the Russians into the U.S. elections.
As you know, the whole purpose of your committee's investigation, the Intelligence Committee, is to find answers on Russia's election meddling. Here's the question. Is Chairman Nunes causing a distraction for your bipartisan effort with that pursuit by raising all these unmasking requests?
Well, I think he is doing that for one reason, and he's doing it on behalf of the president, again, to create a distraction so that we aren't focused on the investigation into Russian interference, but into this bogus unmasking issue, which has already been put down by the then Director Comey and NSA Director Rogers. So it's a non-issue, but again, it's one that they are using as a deflection.
The Speaker, by the way, as you know, Speaker Paul Ryan, he supported Chairman Nunes in this motion. A spokesman for the Speaker put out a statement. Let's move on. What can you tell us about the other four subpoenas issued by your committee? Those four subpoenas do relate directly to the Russia probe and were supported by members of both parties, the Republicans and the Democrats.
So those subpoenas have gone out in part because when we requested information from those individuals, they declined, and so subpoenas were then required in order to compel their testimony.
And tell us about those four subpoenas. What specifically are you looking for?
Well, they're to individuals that we believe can weigh in on the potential interference that took place with the Russians, whether or not there was coordination by Trump operatives and the Russian operatives relative to the intervention into the election cycle. So we will be talking to Mr. Flynn and to Mr. Cohen and others that have been called upon.
Michael Flynn, the fired National Security Advisor, and Michael Cohen, the president's longtime private attorney. Just to be precise, have they both agreed through their attorneys they will fully cooperate with these four subpoenas you've issued involving them?
I believe they have. I can't verify that specifically, but I believe that when they're compelled, they would come forward to be questioned.
Another issue, sources telling CNN that congressional investigators are looking into whether the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, had an additional private meeting with Russia's ambassador to the U.S., Sergei Kislyak, during the presidential campaign, a meeting that was not acknowledged, disclosed. If that meeting did take place, at least two senators, Al Franken and Patrick Leahy, they're calling on Sessions to resign. Would you agree?
Well, if he perjured himself as the Attorney General for the United States, I don't know how he could continue in that role. Much like Michael Flynn, by lying, it really was a situation where he could no longer be the National Security Advisor and was fired as well. So we'll have to wait and see whether or not that was indeed what happened.
But you have no independent knowledge whether or not there was this third unacknowledged meeting that it took place between Sessions and Kislyak.
I wouldn't be able to tell you if I did know.
All right. Well, let me move on and talk about the former FBI Director, James Comey. As you know, he's set to testify in open session a week from today before the Senate Intelligence Committee. What questions does Director Comey need to answer for the committee and for the American public?
Well, it probably will be the most explosive and most watched hearing since Watergate. And I think the questions that will be asked of him will relate to whether or not the President of the United States obstructed the investigation that was ongoing around Michael Flynn, the former National Security Advisor. It is really would be a reprehensible act by the President if, in fact, what has been reported actually took place.
A week from today will be, as I say, must-watch TV. We'll all be there watching. Finally, Congresswoman, I'd like to get your reaction to President Trump's decision today to pull the United States out of the Paris Climate Agreement. He says he's willing to renegotiate. He's willing to open up talks to make a better agreement. But in the meantime, the U.S. no longer is part of that Paris Accord. Your reaction?
Well, I would say that he's made himself totally irrelevant. Probably the most important thing that's happened here is that cities and states are going to go it alone, that businesses and corporations are going to go it alone. The governor of California is on his way right now to China to forge new relations with the Chinese government around climate change. And I would say that the biggest thing that has happened as a result of this action today is that our international relations with our European friends is in shambles. When we're walking hand in hand with Bashar Assad from Syria on climate change, something is seriously wrong.
Almost 200 countries are signatories to the Paris Climate Accord. Only 2, now 3, the United States joining Syria and Nicaragua. Congresswoman Jackie Speier, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to have much more.